Hello and welcome to another episode of one of the most exciting podcasts in the world. We have with us the mathematician, the man with the plan, Samuel. Guys, I apologize for not doing the podcast this weekend. I had a lot of questions. People had questions up on the thing and that, and I couldn't do it. I actually ended up in hospital with heat stroke. Believe it or not, the Australian summer takes yet another victim. Now, it was really bad. I've never had it like that before. Nathan Gorman says, what game plan? Oh, we're going to, in a second, when we do the breakdowns, we're going to start from Luke versus Ian Gary, and we're going to work our way up the card. But I'll just try and answer some of these questions, and then some of them I'll defer to Sam for later on. So Nathan Gorman says, what game plan do you see Colby implementing? How do you see Colby trying to implement it without running into adversity? And Colby's going to do what Colby always does, which is get the takedowns and grind it out from the top and look to ground and pound you and finish you if you can. How do I see him trying to implement it? I see him because they're both southpaws, you know. So I see him probably switch stancing a little bit so that he doesn't fall susceptible to those leg kicks from Leon. And I see him because he has a higher volume output than Leon. So I see him doing that and then shooting the double in against Thing. Is he going to run into adversity? He absolutely is going to run into adversity with Leon. I think Colby will have success early, but at some point I do think that Leon's probably going to cut him with something. Kenzo asks the same thing, and then sorry, Kenzo, my mistake, my apologies. Sorry. Says, what game plan do you see Leon implementing? How do you see Leon trying to implement it without running into adversity? Same thing. He's going to run into adversity. This is a good fight, actually. I think Colby's going to come forward. He's very hard-nosed. He's going to throw a lot of volume at Leon and get Leon's hands up, and then he's going to shoot. Leon's got very silky movement, though. He's very, very good on his toes. He can move really well. I see him using his kicks. I see him switching stances as well, so that when Colby's in southpaw, Leon can switch to orthodox and throw front kicks up the middle. I do believe he'll do things like that. Also start to look at landing leg kicks on Colby because they're southpaw to southpaw. And I think that in any clinches or anything like that, even if he gets taken down, especially early, I think that Leon is going to try and elbow and throw those elbows that he's thrown in the past, like he did against Dos Anjos, like he did against, I believe, Bilal Muhammad. He did it too as well. He's done it a few times where he throws his really neat elbows in the clinches and in the exchanges and in the breaks. And I think he's going to look to cut Colby as well to stop Colby being able to come forward with impunity. Then after that, I do think that Leon's going to just kind of wear on Colby because he's a big guy. He's not easy to take down. Not easy to hold down either. And he has very, very good grappling. He's a dangerous grappler in his own right. Pepcard says, is there anything different Tony could do against Paddy, or considering his age, he won't be able to change anything? I think you have to understand, you have to look at his form and his age, right? And his form is, man, I think he's lost the last 5 in a row or something like this. Let me see. He has lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in a row. And he's worn damage in all of these fights. You know, he's worn big damage. So is there anything he can do? I don't know that at that age, whatever he changes is gonna reverse father time. You know what I mean? This is a reality, you know, and the damage and the wear and tear he's suffered. Harith says, how will Shavkat close the distance versus Wonderboy, considering Shavkat got pieced up at times by Neil and Wonderboy's a sharpshooter? Yeah, I don't know if he got pieced up necessarily, but he did wear some shots. I do agree with you. And Shavkat has the kind of game where he takes one to give one, and I don't know that that's a great thing with Wonderboy. But having said that same thing as well, Wonderboy has taken a lot of shots off a lot of different fighters as well. Like he's not the Wonderboy of 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You know, he's not that same Wonderboy. He's 40 years old. I mean, he had a good win against Kevin Holland, but Kevin Holland had more than his moments in that fight. And if Kevin Holland had a little bit of tactical differences, Kevin Holland would have won that fight. He could have absolutely won that fight. And then, so he's got losses to Bilal Muhammad and he's got losses to Gilbert Burns. He's also got a decision win against Jeff Neal. I'm talking about Wonder Boy here. He's got a win against Vicente Luque. Then he's got the loss to Anthony Pettis and the loss to Darren Till, loss to Tyron Woodley. I remember these losses. The loss against Darren Till, in fairness, he shouldn't have even taken that fight. Darren Till missed weight by 4.5 pounds. Now, if you don't understand fighting, man, and you don't understand weight cutting, to miss weight by 4.5 pounds, especially a young Darren Till back then, because this was 2018, he was like 5 years ago, against a big guy that ended up at middleweight. Try and think of this, right? This guy at the time, because Darren Till in the last 3-4 years is not the same Darren Till that he was back then. But that's a massive advantage, because it's not the weight that you can lose. It's the fact that he can then rehydrate much higher than you. And he didn't kill himself to get down to that weight. So I don't think he should have taken that fight. I just think that Shavkat is going to back himself again to be able to take the shots. It's not like Wonder Boy could knock him out, absolutely. But like I just said then, there's been a lot of fights where Wonder Boy hasn't stopped the guys, you know what I mean? And I don't know that they are the fighter. Like, he lost the decision against Bilal. He lost the decision against Gilbert. The wins against Luque and Jeff Neal, who are tough as nuts, are decision wins. Like, it's not one stop, knock you out thing anymore. And the Kevin Holland one was a 4th round finish. Kevin Holland took a lot of shots, but he gave some as well. So the question's not just going to be about Shavkat, because I do wonder this as well, but does Wonder Boy have it in him to put Shavkat away? Shavkat's a serious cat himself, so I think he's going to do what he always does, which is come forward, hard-nosed, trade shots, and look for the takedown. Madara Uchiha says, what effects could the press conference this week have on the fights? I don't know, man, because I don't know where the focus is going to be on. Like, I don't know that Covington himself is going to get the most reaction out of Edwards, to get the most pop out of the presser. Do you know what I mean? And he's not going to, like, the only person here really is Covington versus Ian Gary at the press conference. And I think that that's probably where it's going to kind of go backwards and forwards a little bit. And so that could be setting up a later fight as well, because Ian Gary is low-hanging fruit to say shit to at the moment. Jordan Martinez says, what happened to Cody Garbrandt? He destroyed Cruz in a spectacular Matrix-like performance versus Cruz, but now he looks like a shell of that fight with a weak chin. I think against Cruz in particular, he had a really, really good game plan and a really good stylistic matchup for Cruz. And after that, he fought Dillashaw twice. But look, you got to understand, he's fought up until, like, he fought Pedro Munoz, who's a big hitter. He fought Dillashaw twice, and Dillashaw was a murderer on every drug under the sun. And that, he took 2 massive losses off him. This is why I don't agree. Like, you can derail someone's career completely, and then take a 6-month or a 2-year ban and be back fighting. Like, it's a bit of a joke, you know what I mean? Like, you can really do some damage to someone, not just physiologically, but psychologically, to their confidence and whatnot is huge, So I think there's always going to be an asterisk on that. I don't think it's as simple as just saying, well, you got fined 25 grand or whatever, and you got, I don't even think they get a fine. And you got a 2-year ban. Like, it really affects people, like, even psychologically. Mario Gomez says, thoughts on Bilal serving as a backup. Sorry, the screen just froze. Thoughts on Bilal serving as a backup to the main event, and how would he fare against both fighters? I think he's quite a few steps behind Leon with the striking. Like, I saw him fight Leon, and I thought like Leon was way ahead of him, even though it finished with an eye poke. I thought Leon was quite a few steps ahead of him, and in the fight with Sean Brady as well. I felt that I don't know what happened to Sean Brady in that fight, but and not taking anything away from Bilal, but I found that Bilal's kind of stand up was kind of robotic in comparison to a Leon, and I think the wrestling probably isn't there against Colby either. I don't think he matches well against either one of those guys. Pep Guard says, what happened if Colby backs Leon beyond the black lines? Is it inevitable he takes him down using the cage Khabib style? Or, I mean, I think it's inevitable that at some point Colby's going to get the takedown. I don't know that Colby's going to get the takedown every single time. And as the fight progresses, Leon knows that this is what Colby's going to do. You know what I mean? So Leon's a very good grappler, man. Very good grappler. He's a big, rangy guy, kind of like built like a big, giant spider. So I don't think he's going to be that easy to take down. It is inevitable that at some point in this fight, Leon's going to be on his back, and Leon knows this. Sufi Mir says, hey, Fab, hope all is well. Do you see Leon's footwork and counters too much for Colby? Leon does a great job of not allowing the wrestler's hands to connect too. He does a fantastic job with that, and he's very big. The thing with Leon, he's got a really small waist, and it's like easier for him to grab that body lock, but then he's got really long legs and really long arms. And his footwork's on point. Like I said, I see him switch hitting as well a little bit on Colby. I think they're both going to switch stances on each other. Oliver Eckerman says, hello, Fab. SG says, greetings, Fab. SG says, imagine a presser with Sean Strickland and Colby Covington and Ian Gary. That would be an interesting one. Randy says, hello. And King Carrot says, are we forgetting Colby is getting a bit old? He hasn't done much lately, to be honest. No, that is another big thing with Colby. He's like 37 years old, and he hasn't fought for a long time. That's another reason why I would back Leon. Sufi Mi says, Ian's biggest weakness is the lead left hook. Vicente can definitely land that hook. Unfortunately, Luke refuses to move his head off the center line. We're going to go through all the fights now, so I don't want to go off on too big of a tangent with stuff. So we'll address, I guess we'll use that to segue into addressing the first fight of the night, Sammy.
Yes, so comparing Vicente Luque and Ian Gary, on the left-hand side we have Vicente, and on the right-hand side we have Ian Gary. So obviously in the UFC, Vicente 14 wins, 5 losses, and in the UFC for Ian Gary 6 wins, 0 losses, and undefeated overall in his professional career as well. Comparing average per round of strikes landed, Vicente has 23 significant strikes landing on average per round, whereas Ian Gary has 32, so 9 more strikes on average per round landing. For Vicente, 14 of those significant strikes are to the head, whereas Ian Gary again higher at 18. And then also Ian Gary has higher significant strikes to the body and to the legs over Vicente as well.
I don't see, this is how I see this fight going. I see that Ian Machado Gary is 26 years old. He's 6'3". He's a big boy. He's going to end up at middleweight inevitably, for sure. Right? Sorry, let me just... Yeah, he's going to end up at middleweight. He is undefeated. Has a bunch of KOs and TKOs in his arsenal, like that he's done before. He's beaten some decent guys, man, too. Like, not top of the food chain guys, but still like solid fighters. Song Kanan is a solid fighter. Daniel Rodriguez is a solid fighter. Jordan Williams has got some good wins in his career as well. He's got some not just the wins, but he's got fights, like good fights. So he's been in some solid guys. I think Vicente has the the more impressive resume as far as who he's fought. But he's a little bit older, not too much older. He's still in his prime. I just see Ian Gary's like a bigger, younger version, and I just see he's going to probably be a little bit much for Vicente in terms of just the fact that Vicente doesn't get his head off the center line as much. Just the fact that he is there to be hit, I think will probably end up giving Vicente the win. That's how I see this fight. What else do you have on that, Sammy?
Just that Ian Gary also has a slight edge in terms of accuracy as well. So just a slight edge in terms of head strikes and significant strikes, and slight edge as well in terms of strikes to the body inaccuracy and strikes to the legs as well. So he hits more and he's more efficient. The only other thing would be maybe how would it compare? This is probably just more of a question for you, obviously, than the stats, but this is his fourth fight this year. How does that affect him in that respect? Whereas
for Ian Gary,
for Ian Gary. So this is his fourth fight this year. Was Vicente's only fought once in 2023.
I think that for a young guy like Ian Gary, I think it can be nothing but helpful. The odds, correct me if I'm wrong, and please double check this. The odds have it as Ian Gary being far away the favorite. Am I correct with this?
Yeah, he's at minus 360.
So almost 4-1 odds.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ian's a almost 4-1 favorite, 3.5-1 or something like this favorite. I don't know if he's that much of a favorite, in my opinion. And you're asking me about him fighting, this being his fourth fight. I think it can only be helpful for a young guy like him. And the fights that he's had have not been fights that he's taken a huge amount of damage on. You know what I mean? He won. So let's see. He beat Song Kanan by TKO. He took a huge shot in that fight. He beat Daniel Rodriguez by TKO in round 1, and he beat Neil Magny by decision very, very recently. I think that for him taking the fourth fight, he's young. He hasn't taken huge amounts of damage. I think it's great, and I think it's going to be an advantage in this fight, in particular against Vicente, who hasn't been as active. So I don't know if 4-1 is the odds that I'd give, but I definitely have him as the favorite, and I think that Ian's going to get it done. My heart's with Vicente. I've always liked Vicente Luque. I've met him in real life. He's a good dude. He's a gentleman. I really hope he gets it done, but I'm trying to put any personal biases aside. He's one of the few guys, I'll tell you this, like one of the few, not even athletes and that I've met. I've met athletes, I've met other people, and rarely do they live up to what you thought. But Vicente is like a cool dude. Like, I met him almost by chance, and it didn't click to me right at first who he was, because he was just like a normal guy, just the way he carried on. And so then, of course, straight away I was like, oh, fuck, that's Vicente Luque. And Bobby Green's another guy who I always go for, because he's actually a really nice guy as well, a real gentleman as well. Not fake, nice, bullshit, nice kind of guy. Like, just like they're legitimately good guys, you know what I mean? So my heart's with Vicente, but I think Gary's going to get it done, and he might even get the finish. But I go Ian Gary by decision. That's what I think. What do you think, Sammy?
Yeah, I have Ian Gary overall as well, just in terms of he has a higher, kind of strike rate, average per round, much higher in terms of significant strikes, 10 extra strikes on average per round. And he also has the higher accuracy as well, so he's more efficient as well.
Who gets more efficient? Ian?
Yeah, Ian, yeah. So he's slightly more efficient and he strikes a lot more. He lands a lot more, at least. I
think the volume, that's an important thing to take into account, because like the volume is going to be a big one with Vicente because Vicente gets hit, and so when he gets hit, it's he's got a good chin, but the volume and the movement from Ian, as long as he doesn't get knocked out, is going to get him the win. Vicente, just by the figures, by the stats of what we've seen, would I be fair to say Samuel would have to get the finish, like a knockout or a submission would be the. I don't think he's going to win a decision against Ian Gary just because of the sheer volume of strikes from Ian Gary and the fact that they're also accurate. Would that be fair?
Yep, I'd agree with that.
Yes. So then I'd have to go with Ian. See, some people wrote, I feel like people aren't giving Colby his credit. Man, I think they are, Oliver Ekman, and I hate to disagree with you, and just in the fact that he's even gotten his title shot. Beetlejuice says, Fabsky, Ian Gary is such a victim, but I'm excited to watch him. He's a very good fighter. You've got to separate the two things. He's a very good fighter, and I do think that he probably hasn't handled the whole thing with his wife, etc., like as well as he could have. I think he should have leaned into it more. Like I always say to people, like if people are going to make fun of you, you gotta lean into it. You can't be that offended or try and carry on unless he's a marketing genius and this is all part of that plan. Sufimi says we still don't know Ian's ground game. Vicente has nasty anaconda chokes from the front headlocks positions. He does have good anaconda chokes, good dust chokes in particular, but there's a lot of things that have to happen for you to get to that position. Like, I think he got, if I'm not mistaken, the last guy he got from memory was oh my god, Maverick. What's his oh my god, how could I have forgotten his name? I like him. He's a really good fighter. He's one of my favorites. But anyways, he got that guy, but that guy is shooting and he's initiating the takedowns. You know what I mean? And Ian Gary's not going to do that. So for Michael Kessa, he got him in a Bravo choke. He like a lot of things have to happen for you to be in that position. You have to shoot. He has to stuff your shot. There's a whole bunch of stuff, and I don't see Ian Gary doing that, and I don't see Vicente shooting a double leg and getting him to. I don't see that. He might shoot a takedown or two. I'm not saying he won't, but is he going to be able to out wrestle Ian Gary and get to? No, I don't think so. I just don't think that he will do that. King Carrot says, don't get me wrong, Ollie. Nobody can take away skills, but he's not young anymore, and cardio was his game. Who knows which Colby shows up? Fair, King Carrot. Oliver Aikman says, crazy how Ian's and Paddy's fans completely turned on them in such a short time. In fairness, though, some of the stuff's not that likable, dude. Oliver Aikman says, I got you, King Carrot. Sufimi says, Ian does also get caught when his back is to the fence. We've seen him having trouble moving laterally across the fence. Yeah, but it's not like this huge thing in his game. Like he can get caught. Yes, he does. Some of these things can be true. But overall, if you look at the two of them, can Vicente win? Of course he can win. And there are ways for him to win. But I don't necessarily see him doing it. SG says, off topic, we would like to hear your thoughts on UFC signing Olympic bronze medalist Robelis Despain. Despain's, I think, 35 years old, Taekwondo guy out of Cuba, bronze medalist, like you said. He had a walkover. For the bronze medal, I believe. But still, he was Pan American champion, Cuban champion, obviously, and there's no joke. That's no joke. Heavyweight's not the best. And I think when you have an athlete of that caliber at heavyweight, a guy that can move like that is going to be a problem. And this would have been a problem if the guy was a basketball player, But on top of it, this guy's a combat athlete. I was talking to one of the boys the other day, to Harry DeLuca, that's here and trains with us as well, who, congratulations, Harry DeLuca, for he's actually become a tradie today. He passed his practical, he passed his theory. He's an electrician as of today. But we're talking about this, like you see some of these kids that are like, let's say, in the top 20 of their class in the United States for American football, for example. And some of these kids, if they went into heavyweight MMA, for sure they'd be champions. There just isn't that kind of athleticism 10 deep in the UFC. So that's my thoughts on Despain. Like, there's not that many athletes with that level of athleticism in the UFC. And SG says Manny has an average fight time of 6 seconds. Yeah, but he's not fighting. Some of the guys he was fighting are not that level, but he's legit, dude. You don't win an Olympic bronze medal by accident. Sammy, anything else before we move on?
No, I just had a quick look at all the submissions and that from Vicente as well. So, yeah, in the UFC at least 4 dust chokes, 1 anaconda. His accuracy in those fights was slightly higher than his average. And then obviously the actual strikes that he landed in those fights was slightly below his average. So that obviously means there's a bit more grappling in those fights as well, which obviously results in those submission wins.
Yeah, and he was getting pressed by Kesa for the takedown because Kesa's stand-up is not at Luque's level. And so all these things came into play. Let's have a talk about Paddy the Baddie and Tony Ferguson. My thoughts on this is Paddy Pimblett is going to bash Tony Ferguson. I don't think this fight should even be made, to be honest with you. It's not even if, like, let's say Tony Ferguson wins, right? Let's say this is why I think it's stupid. Let's say Tony Ferguson wins. What are you going to do with someone that's 39 years old and has lost the last 6 fights in a row? Like, and some of them really badly. Like, what do you want to do with this guy? Like, what is the point of having this guy suffer huge amounts of brain damage and just physical damage and all the rest of it? I don't understand it. I don't get it. It's like silly to me, you know. It's almost negligent, in my opinion. And it doesn't, like, when people go, well, if that's what he wants to do, and I think there's things you have to protect people from themselves. People don't necessarily, you're not a doctor. You don't understand the damage that you're going to have in 10, 20 years from, shots to your head and whatnot. A lot of the times people don't, so I think this fight's a bit crazy in that even if he beats Paddy Pimblett, I still don't see what that does for his career, but I don't see him beating Paddy Pimblett. Thoughts, Sammy?
Yeah, so he hasn't had a win, obviously, since 2019 against Donald Cerrone, and then and obviously it's just been losses. 6 losses since then: Bobby Green, Michael Chandler, Nate Diaz, Benil Dariush, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje. And then on the other side, you've got Paddy Pimblett, who's had 4 wins in the UFC. Last one against Jared Gordon. When you actually compare there, and obviously there's a lot more fights to go off for Tony Ferguson as well for his stats too, but he averages 23 significant strikes per round, which is a little bit higher, obviously, than Paddy Pimblett, who's only averaging around 18 to 19 significant strikes per round. In terms of head strikes, Tony Ferguson's landing at a rate of about 14 per round. Again, higher than Paddy Pimblett at 11. And then strikes to the body and leg as well slightly favor Tony Ferguson, but that's over his whole UFC career, whereas we only have 4 fights in the UFC for Paddy Pimblett. And obviously, he hasn't had any losses in the UFC as well. He's got a couple of submissions in there too. In terms of accuracy, it also slightly favors Tony over Paddy Pimblett.
I get the stats with all of that. I do. And I'm just going to answer. Sufi Mir says, power is the last thing that leaves. And we've seen Tony drop Chandler and Bobby. So there is a slight chance of Tony knocking down Paddy at least. He could beat Paddy. I'm going to pick Paddy, but he could beat Paddy. I just don't understand what that does for anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand what that would do. Like, what do you do? He's not gonna, like, he's 39 years old. I don't know what you do with it. I'm just looking up the odds here. I don't know what you do with it. Like I don't see a point. I see it as a bit dumb. The thing. 1 second. I don't get it. I don't know what you do with it. Ferguson opened as a plus 300 underdog, and Pimblett opened as a minus 380 betting favorite. The other thing is Paddy Pimblett, man. I don't rate him massively, but he's a big, strong guy at that weight division, like a really big, strong young man. And like the best days of Tony Ferguson are far behind him. They are far, far behind him. There's like 10 years difference, 11 years difference between the two of them, if I'm not mistaken, Sammy. And yeah, and you're talking about a big, strong guy who, whilst I don't think he's amazing, he's still like a BJJ black belt. He still has skills. He still wins fights. I thought he lost the Gordon fight, but hey, that's me. I haven't seen anything from him to suggest he's an absolute world beater, nothing at all. But I don't think he's going to need that to get past Ferguson. I just don't think that. And I hope Tony Ferguson wins. My heart completely is with Tony Ferguson. Another dude who I've met, like in passing, and seemed like a nice guy. Just hello as I was walking through. But he seemed like a nice guy. Didn't seem like a mean person, or like actually was like a nice dude. But I just like him. I'm actually a fan of Tony Ferguson, and I hope he gets a job done. But I don't see him being Paddy Pimblett, because I just think like there are things you're not reversing, man. You're not reversing 39 years old on a six fight losing streak. Not only are you not reversing it, this is what people don't understand. Even if you win, you're still not reversing that. Nor the trauma, nor the... It's not about whether he has a chance of winning. Sammy, anything else?
No, not really. I'm kind of in the same camp with you in terms of I'd slightly favour Paddy Pimblett, even though he does have a slightly lower significant strike rate of landing. So slightly lower, but I don't think that really overcomes that age difference as well. And we've looked at those age difference like statistically over the UFC in the past as well. Definitely favours the younger fighter, especially when it gets to those big difference in ages of, like over a decade.
Especially after 35, I think. Like after one fight is like 35. After one fighter is over 35 and you got one under 30, it starts to become quite apparent.
And we did see that as well. He was still, over 35 when he had his last win. So against Cerrone as well. So then since then he's only had losses, albeit it's had losses against some really big names as well.
Yeah, no, they've been nothing but killers. I don't think it helped him a lot. SG says, Tony is a perfect example of a guy who's never been the same after a fight. That Gaethje fight changed him. I would honestly say the way I feel about that, though, Gaethje beats people, man. And Ferguson's a tough guy, and he's had good fights in the past and everything. But like his decline, I believe, happened like even after that Cerrone fight. Like there was a decline. It's not just the Gaethje fight. There's also a decline in age. It's not like that happened at his absolute prime and then he just fucking disappeared after a fight. And it was the fight that changed him. It's not that Tony Ferguson can't fight, dude. It's that he's 39 years old. He's 39 years old with 6 losses in a row. This is why statistically you have to look at that. Now, people can go, he wins, and people go, all the people that doubted him and all the blah, blah, blah. But you have to fucking doubt him, dude. It'd be like me, for some reason, I do open heart surgery on someone and I get it right and I save his life. And then I think, fuck you, all you people that doubted me. You should have doubted me. You should doubt me. If that's the resume, if you got 6 losses and you're 39 years old and you're fighting a 28-year-old guy, you should be doubted. You should be. You can't be shocked that people doubt you. Leighton says it's a lose-lose situation for Paddy, but I'll tell you this, dude. I don't think Paddy's some fucking amazing guy either. I think like Tony's going to give him a fight. I honestly think that, but he should, if he's anything, be able to run through Dingo, be able to run through him. Sufi Mi says, I think it's Dana using Tony's name as a way to propel Paddy as a bigger star. Of course, it's winnable and a big name, but Paddy won't get past the likes of Drew and Turner if we are being honest. I agree. So SG says, if Ferguson wins, he'll still be in a limbo of sorts. What will the UFC do with him? Have him fight Nasrat? It's not even a limbo, dude. It's not a limbo. Limbo means you're like in no man's land in the middle. He's not going anywhere. He's beyond limbo. Sufi Mi says, are Tony and Nate good examples of fighters whose chin can actually be detrimental to one's career? If they were more chinny, they would pay attention on striking defense a lot more. They're different. They're very different, though. You know, Nate can box, though. You know what I mean? Whereas I think that, and he has a great chin, but I do agree with the fact that probably if they didn't have such good chins, they probably would be done. And long term, it would help their mental health. Oliver Ekman says, I love you, Fab. Oliver, I love you too, mate. I love you too. What else we got there, Sammy?
Nothing too much for that one, but it's probably also worth noting that while I do think that Paddy Pimblett will take the win, you know, it's his kind of record, even in the UFC, isn't unblemished, I suppose. That last fight he had with Jared Gordon was somewhat questionable for a unanimous decision, at least.
It was beyond questionable, Sammy. It was beyond questionable. Questionable is when my daughters are nice to me, and I don't know why they're being nice to me. If they've broken something in the house, that's questionable. The other thing was a farce. That was horrid. That was horrid. All right, Samuel, hit me with the next one.
1 second. Shavkat and Stephen Thompson.
Who you got in this fight? I have Shavkat winning this fight, by the way. And I have him winning it, I don't know if comfortably, but I definitely think he's gonna win this fight. I think he's, again, man, like, it's not that Thompson's not good. It's not anything like that. But I don't think he's anywhere near what he used to be. And you've got another guy in Shavkat who's a young, up-and-coming, absolute killer. So tell me what you think, Sammy.
Yes, at least in the UFC, 5 wins, 0 losses for Shavkat, whereas 12 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw for Stephen Thompson. The UFC has Shavkat at minus 520 as well, so it's pretty convincing on that front. In terms of his stats in previous fights, Shavkat has, you know, they both have a significant strike of around 20, so very similar significant strike landing. Total strikes landing does favor Shavkat as well. He strikes at a rate of about 32 on average per round compared to Thompson at 24 per round. Very similar in terms of head strikes, 13 for Shavkat, 13.7 for Stephen Thompson on average per round. A slight edge in body strikes to Shavkat as well at 6 compared to 5, but only a slight edge. The accuracy, so the efficiency, does favor Shavkat as well. His significant strike percentage is at around 59%, whereas Stephen Thompson is at a rate of about 46%. Strikes to the head, Shavkat has 51% over Stephen Thompson at 39%. Strikes to the body as well, Shavkat 83% compared to Stephen Thompson at 70%. So they're very similar in terms of strikes and significant strikes. But the accuracy does go with Shavkat as well. Strikes on the ground as well do favor Shavkat. He's lands at around 3 significant ground strikes per round as well.
And so going against the popular narrative, I suppose, where Thompson is the sniper, the more accurate striker, the statistics don't necessarily say so. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Although we've got a lot more fights of Wonder Boys to watch than Shavkat's in terms of the UFC, but from what you're seeing, if you it's actually not at least at this stage.
Yeah, so just average per round. Obviously, we're only comparing 5 fights to 19 fights. So the Thompson has a lot more stats that he can draw from, but he's got a lot more losses in there as well. So obviously,
what was that? Are you all right, Sammy?
No,
Hello.
Yeah,
hello.
I'm here. Just some V8s going past down the street.
Wow.
Yeah, so obviously a lot more stats and fights to draw off from Stephen Thompson, but just an average per round. Yeah, they're very similar profiles in terms of significant strikes and head, body, and leg strikes landed. With Stephen Thompson having a slight edge, but only ever slight, but the accuracy actually stands with Shavkat.
And I think that not only then is the striking, let's say, the striking, like I do feel this between them, at least, especially now, the striking's a bit of a coin flip, right, between the two of them. But the grappling is not. The grappling is absolutely in Shavkat's favor. Whether Shavkat can get him down or not is a different story. Wonder Boy is very elusive, etc., etc., etc. But the striking is a bit of a coin toss. So I'm not sure what's going to happen there. The big thing is we're talking about, again, a big guy, 6'1", at welterweight in Shavkat, someone you're probably going to end up seeing at middleweight as well. With a lot of wins. He's got wins over middleweights as well. He's got win over the Iron Turtle that lost recently on the weekend, a very close fight with Muniz. But no, I don't know necessarily that I can back Wonder Boy in this one. I think that Wonder Boy is the Wonder Boy of old is not necessarily there in that, he's also gone quite the distance with a lot of fighters. Like he's gone the distance with Bilal Muhammad and lost, gone the distance with Gilbert Burns and lost, went the distance with Jeff Neal and Vicente Luque and won both those fights. And then recently against Kevin Holland, he went 4 rounds, and there were moments in that fight that I do believe that if Kevin Holland tactically had different approaches, it could have been a different fight, and it wasn't, obviously, but credit to Wonder Boy. But that thing of, is he going to be able to stop Shavkat coming forward? I don't necessarily think he's going to be able to do that. Anything else, Sammy, on that?
Not too much. Shavkat does have a takedown accuracy of around 33%, so not that high in terms of his takedown completion rate. He does have an average takedown like per 15 minutes of around 1.5. So yeah, if he keeps kind of throwing those as well. And then in terms of defense, Stephen Thompson has a takedown defense of around 64% as well. So yeah, still relatively high as well in terms of his takedown defense.
Yeah, I just feel that hold on 1 second. Sorry, people. I thought something. Hello?
I can hear you. I just can't see you.
I don't know what's happened to my screen. Hello?
Yeah, mate, we can hear.
Man, I don't know what happened to my computer, but I could hear screaming and I ran downstairs. I didn't know what had happened. It was just my wife tickling my daughters. Unbelievable. And I don't know what happened to the fucking hell, mate. I swear. I don't know what we do with these people. Anyways, I might just have to go off this. All right. No, I see I don't see Stephen Thompson getting the win. Let's put it this way. I don't see him getting the win necessarily. I don't know if they're the odds that I agree with, but I do think that Shavkat's definitely deserved favorite and he's going to get the win. Anything else, Sammy?
No, that was the same side for me as well. So obviously very similar profiles in terms of strikes landed against their opponent, with a slight advantage or a large advantage to the total strikes, but not all of those are significant. And then there's the accuracy as well does stand with Shavkat as well. And then obviously the grappling. He's got 5 wins in the UFC, and 4 of those, rear naked choke, guillotine, rear naked choke, guillotine. And then his other win is a KO as well. So it's not like he's devoid of power either.
And I don't think that there's any offensive wrestling coming back from Stephen Thompson to stop or give him other looks. So I definitely think Shavkat's going to get this done. All right, moving right along to the next fight, which I believe is Pantoja versus Royval. And Pantoja, if I'm not mistaken, is a 2-1 favorite. I've had Brandon Royval on the podcast. He's a clever fellow, very good fighter. He has some really good wins as well. He beat Mateus Nicolau recently with knee and elbows. He's got a win over Matt Schnell by submission, is guillotine. A win against Rogerio Bontorin by decision, a split decision. But then he has a loss to Alexandre Pantoja by submission, rear naked choke, and a loss to Brandon Moreno by TKO with punches. In both those fights, he's got wins over Kai Kara France and Tim Elliott, both of them by submission. Guillotine choke on Kai Kara France, and Tim Elliott he beat with a triangle choke. These are the last bunch of fights that he's had. But having said that, and this is what's important, Alexandre Pantoja and Brandon Moreno, both in their fights outgrappled him. And he's a tricky fellow. He's tall. He's quite tall for a flyweight, but he's 5'9" for a flyweight. So that's tall for a flyweight. I just think that Pantoja is a little bit tidier than him. That's my opinion. But Pantoja is much shorter. He's 5'5", but he does have a win over him already, and he's showed some really, really, really good grappling against Brandon Moreno in their last fight. What do you think, Sammy?
Yeah, so just in terms of striking, it does stand, the kind of favorite does stand with Pantoja. He has significant strikes of landing around 20 per round, and Royval is landing at 13 per round. So, Pantoja does have significant strikes, like at a higher rate of landing. Also, head strikes, he lands at around 13 compared to 8. He lands body strikes at 4 compared to 3, so he is above in every aspect of striking. Pantoja does lead the way over Royval. In terms of accuracy of striking does stand with Pantoja as well. He's landing significant strikes at a rate of about 48%, head strikes at 41% compared to Royval, who's significant strikes at 38% and 30% for head strikes as well. So around 10% higher for Pantoja as well. Probably the interesting one is Royval has a takedown rate or takedown accuracy of 100%, which is not something we've really seen before, and it's around 45% for Pantoja.
Who has the 100% takedown defense?
No, not defense. Takedown accuracy, Royval has 100% takedown accuracy.
Yeah, but you are right. I believe you, but that's where I think it kind of has fallen against him in that when he has gotten the fight to the ground against these, or the fights has hit the ground with these two guys, with Moreno and Pantoja, the fights have not gone his way. And this is something that I think will affect him, not just in the fight, but strategically as he's planning it. I think that's something, or even as he's there, I think that will be a problem. Harry DeLuca says your camera is unplugged. Maybe, yeah. I don't know what happened there. I had to make a run for it, and I don't know. Maybe the camera became unplugged. I'm trying to figure it out, but I have no chance of figuring this out. As you were, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Hello?
So just for this matchup, I do have Pantoja overall. He has a higher striking rate and landing rate in terms of significant strikes, head strikes, body strikes, leg strikes, and then also has the previous win against Royval as well. Also has the win over Brandon Moreno too. And obviously, we're not doing any MMA maths here, but Brandon Moreno has also beaten Royval as well. So I do favor Pantoja in it.
Sorry, Royval is 31 and Pantoja is 33. They're both more or less in their peaks. I have to go with Pantoja on this fight. I don't know if he's 2-1 favorite. I'd give him that much, but I definitely favor him. So I'm going to go with Pantoja on it. So now let's go to the main event of the evening, which is Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington. Tell me what you think, Samuel.
1 second.
I'm going to go with Leon Edwards. I think that Leon Edwards is going to be a little bit too classy on the feet. I think that Colby Covington is going to get ahead in the early parts of the fight, but I don't know that he's going to be able to keep that rhythm going. And I don't think he's going to be able to come forward with impunity against such a surgical striker like an Edwards, right? And further to that, I don't know that he's going to be able to deal with the counter grappling of a Leon Edwards in the same way. I'm not saying that Leon Edwards is going to take him down. I'm not saying necessarily Leon Edwards is going to out grapple him, but he's a very difficult person to take down. He's a very big guy, and his striking is very good. And I do think that he's going to land some very, very good shots on Colby throughout the fight. What have we got here?
Yeah, so just overall, in terms of overall comparison as well, Leon Edwards, average per round. Oh no, whoops, sorry, 1 second.
They have Edwards down as a 150 favorite, as a minus 150 favorite against Colby, which is interesting. I actually feel like for Colby to win, he has to do a lot more things than what Edwards has to do, because you do have to be able to grab someone, take them down, hold them down, and you have to do that for 5 rounds. And I would probably have backed Colby a few years ago, but Colby now he's been inactive for a little bit, which is a big thing, right? Colby Covington is now 35 years old. He's not as old as I would have thought, but his last fight was against Masvidal, 5th of March 2022. So he hasn't been as active as he was before. He's not quite at that age, which is a little bit past it, but Leon Edwards is at a prime. Is in his prime. He's 32 years old there, so there's not a huge age difference, but there does become a point in at those ages where one guy's, like we saw with Dariush, one guy leaves his prime and the other guy's right in it. And I do think there's going to be an element of that with Leon and Colby. And the style that Colby has requires you to have absolute, spot on cardio, Otherwise, it's going to become a really, really difficult thing for you be able to implement. So these are the things that I think. These are things that I probably think will lean towards Edwards. I think it's going to be a close fight, but I also think that Edwards has the ability to cut Colby the way that he fights and the way that he throws those elbows. I do maintain that I think he's going to cut Colby, he's going to hit him, he's going to hurt him, and it's going to make it hard for Colby to just keep coming forward. Sammy?
Yeah, so 13 wins and 2 losses in Leon's UFC career compared with 12 wins and 2 losses in Colby's career as well. Probably worth noting as well that the last loss that Leon had was in 2015 against Usman as well, and his last 2 wins were against Usman. So in terms of their statistics in average strikes landed per round, for total strikes, Colby does have a higher output. He lands total strikes at 35 strikes per round to 18 for Leon Edwards. But at the same time too, the accuracy does stand with Leon. So 60% total strikes landed. Colby only has 52, 53% accuracy for significant strikes compared to Colby's 39%. So in that aspect, it definitely goes towards Leon. In terms of significant strikes landed, Colby does have an edge at 19. So obviously he's doesn't hit in like consistently the hardest. He's 35 total strikes per round, but only 19 of those were considered significant. Compared to Leon, who lands 18 total strikes per round, and 13 of those are considered significant. Only 8 of those strikes to the head are considered significant, whereas Colby lands at around 13 to 14 significant head strikes per round as well. And strikes to the body and legs are fairly similar between the two of them.
Here's a thing I think I always picked Leon to beat Usman the second time they fought and the third time they fought. The second time they fought, the only thing that I thought was going to make a massive difference is if Leon didn't prepare properly for altitude. And I know that Usman trains and / lives at altitude. And I thought that would be a massive problem. And it was. And I didn't, throughout the fight, though, I didn't pick that he was going to win the fight the way that he did. But when they fought again in the rematch, I picked Edwards. I thought Edwards going to just be what he did. That's what I thought was going to happen. And I see Colby being a very similar kind of fight. The other thing that doesn't give me confidence to pick Colby is when I see his fight against Masvidal. That fight against Masvidal is 39 years old now. Isn't the same Masvidal from 5-6 years ago. He isn't. And I don't think that Masvidal would beat Leon Edwards. I don't think he would. I just think Leon is a bigger, more slick version of Masvidal. And Masvidal is one of my favorite fighters. So Masvidal's resume looks like this. Kamaru Usman decision loss. Kamaru Usman KO loss. This is in the last bunch of fights. Colby Covington unanimous decision, and then Gilbert Burns unanimous decision losses. I don't think that Colby Covington can do what he did to Masvidal to Leon Edwards for 5 rounds. I don't think so. And I don't think he can do it without getting hurt. And he did get hurt against Masvidal. And he did get hurt against Masvidal pretty bad, where he took a knee. He got hit and dropped to a knee. So I don't know that he's going to be able to do that to Leon Edwards and not get hit and hurt throughout the fight. And I just think that Leon's going to be someone that's going to be able to capitalize on it again and again. He's not a 38, 39-year-old Masvidal. He's a young, in his prime champion. That's my that's my take on that. Sammy?
Just in terms of work rate comparison between the two over their fight, over all their fights and that as well, average attempted by target, so head, body, and leg. Leon definitely increases that first round is like he only attempts 13 head strikes, for instance, and then he increases that in round 2 to 20. Same thing with round 3, increases again in round 4 to 24, and then back down slightly in round 5. Whereas Colby has a much higher strike rate of attempted strikes. So he's, throwing 31, 43, 39, 62. So he's throwing, 2-3 times as much as Leon as well. In terms of his strikes that he's landed as well, Colby does have an edge, slight edge in round 1. Round 2, he's almost double Leon Edwards. And then round 3, slightly drops back again. And then the ones he's had for round 4 and that as well, obviously, in terms of landing strikes, a lot higher than Leon Edwards as well. But Leon does kind of increase as he goes along, and then also increases his leg strikes and that too. In terms of accuracy by target as well, Leon does perform a bit better in terms of efficiency as well. And obviously Colby's throwing all those strikes, but he's not actually landing them all either. So, Leon lands head strikes at a rate of around 43, 39, 40, 48 per round, whereas Colby's a lot less. He only lands head strikes at 29%, 34%, 31%. And the strikes of the body and to the legs also, in terms of accuracy, also favor Leon Edwards as well.
And I think that those shots to the body and to the legs are what is going to affect someone like Colby immensely throughout the fight, And the thing with Leon is the figures, in my opinion, the stats aren't as telling, because he doesn't throw like good money after bad. He's very methodical and very economic with the way that he lands his strikes. He picks his shots, he picks his shots, surgical with them. He's very, very good. Very, very, very good fighter. What else you got there, Sammy?
I do have the strikes by position, so where they're actually thrown from as well. So distance, clinch, and ground. Very similar profiles in terms of obviously stand-up, like striking in that as well. But in terms of attempted, Colby does have a higher work rate than Leon. In terms of strikes that are landed, it comes back and it's very a little bit similar, but Colby does have an edge in terms of he does land more strikes. But the accuracy, again, stands with Leon Edwards as well.
And I think accuracy is a huge one, because you can throw like a million strikes like a washing machine, and it's not gonna necessarily do anything. You know what I mean? Like, but the way that Leon lands his shots are good, and the shots he landed on Nate, man, he landed some big shots on Nate, and he out-grappled Nate too on the ground, which is, there's a lot to be said about that. So I think that he's gonna give Colby a lot of problems. Anything else, Sammy?
No, but just my 2 cents. I have Leon over Colby in this one as well, just in terms of accuracy and that as well. So I do think that does favor him. Also, his significant strikes, while they might be slightly lower, I think that efficiency does go for Leon too. And on that note, I've got to go. So
thank you, Sammy. Sir. Take care. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. I agree with young Sammy. See you tonight, mate. I agree with young Sammy that those particular, I agree with Sammy. I think Edward's going to get it done. I think Edward's going to give I do think he's going to give Colby a bit of a beating, to be honest with you. I do think that Colby's going to come in. He's going to throw volume, and he's going to get in, and he's going to get a takedown, and he's going to look good early. But I do think that Leon's going to come on towards the end of the fight, and I think he's going to hurt him. I think Leon's going to win the decision against Colby. Randy says, I heard Ian Gary is a really selfish prick in the gym and teams. What's your take on that? You see, this is the thing, man. There's a big difference between a gym and a team. Like, if you train in one of those big super gyms, it's not necessarily a team, not in the way that I see a team. So it really becomes fragmented, and it's like a team within a team. And so you don't necessarily all have the same rules. You're really there to use the facilities and use the other bodies as sparring partners, So it's not the same thing. If you have a team, like a tight-knit group of people that you're all moving together in a certain direction, and this is different, so this is a different thing. So I want to make those two things very clear. I don't know about, sometimes when people go, oh, you won't fight teammates. I think it's absurd to fight teammates, but I don't think that it's the same thing when you fight at a big super gym. I don't agree with that. Like, let's say there's 300 people in a place, more, maybe 1,000 people in one of those big gyms. You got 50 to 100 professional fighters, and there's guys you might not even see. You might not even see them. They're not your teammates. You know what I mean? So that's a different story. But guys that, like, say what, I don't know, I don't want to talk out of school, but say what Rory McDonald and GSP were to each other. As if Rory's going to fight GSP. Like, this is a different thing. This is a different thing. So I don't know about that. That's a different thing. So if you letting someone come into your gym that's not part of your gym or part of your team, and he's allowed to hop around, he trains 2 months over there, 2 months over here, and people can say, hey man, that's cool. But if you allow that person to come in, then you can't expect them to have like a team mentality if they didn't from the start. So I don't know that it's fair to say he's a selfish prick, in as far as like, why are you letting someone, if you don't share those values, why are you letting them train with you? Why are you letting them think? So if I'm running a fight team, or any team for that matter, like if I was running a rugby league team, I would not let the opposition come and train with us. You know what I mean? That's just dumb. That's just stupid. Like, so if you have a team, it's more about the people that you keep out than the people that you allow in. So with that being said, if you let him in and you clearly outlined the rules and he broke the rules and you don't let him in again, that's fine. That's the thing. But if you don't really have any clear rules, there's a whole bunch of people in, and it's like kind of like Rafferty's rules, you know what I mean? Like, then you can't say it's on him. You know what I mean? That's my take on that. Those big gyms are different. Like, people really, and for some people they're great, because they've got all these amazing fighters and these amazing facilities, and people, they're like a beacon, so people go to them, and I think that's fantastic. But you can't go there expecting to have the same values as a small team. This is not the same deal. You can't have both things, you know what I mean? And a lot of the times in those big gyms, you have a bunch of small fragmented teams. This is what happens, so you can't expect to have your mum's home cooking at a restaurant, All right, guys, thank you so much. And I will catch you guys very, very soon. And for sure, we will be watching on Sunday together. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.